make fresh pasta. So fresh pasta is traditionally made with semolina flour, which is made from durum wheat, which is just a different type of wheat. It has different characteristics from the regular all-purpose bread type flour we use for making breads. So I'm going to use both. There's certain characteristics of the semolina I want, and there's certain characteristics of the all-purpose and regular wheat flour that I want. So I'm going to be using both of those. So I have a cup of each, half and half. I'm going to put them in there. I also need some salt. So I'm going to put some salt in and just mix those around. You know, you may have seen people just doing this on the table and stuff, but I'm notoriously messy, so I am making mine in a bowl. Then I can put it on the table. So I've mixed those together, and I make a little hole here in the little nest for the eggs, and I have 4 eggs here. I want to put those in there, break the yolks and mix them up just a little bit. And then I can start incorporating some of the flour from the outer edges. So I want to kind of do a lot of this with the fork because, like I said, I'm kind of messy and I'll be wearing it all over the place. So until I get it to the point where it's kind of doughy, I'm going to use the fork. You can use a food processor for this. You can use just your hands. It doesn't really matter. What is going to matter is that we knead it some. We have to develop some of the gluten in here so that it doesn't just crumble when we make it into the pasta. So I'm just going to put it here and try and get, it's very, very wet and sticky. So I want to incorporate all of the flour that's kind of just hanging around there. And this is super easy. You can make it 100% with all-purpose flour. You could make it 100% with semolina. I just like the characteristics because I'm going to make linguine, spaghetti type pasta out of this. So I'm going to keep it 50-50. Hi, we're back, and I had my pasta in the refrigerator for about an hour. I have it out now. It feels a little bit stiff, but not too bad. And I'm going to show you now how to roll it out with the machine, and then I'll show you, save a piece and show you how to roll it out and cut it with just by hand using a rolling pin and a knife. So with my machine here, it comes with the kit came with the rollers, and you usually have interchange, like if you had a pasta machine, you would have a roller and then the cutters. Some of them have a ravioli thing, which is more trouble than it's worth, but usually there is a smaller one, which is spaghetti, and then a wider cutter that is linguine. So what does this do? Well, it opens up and you put your pasta in there, and you have to keep in mind you cannot just shove that whole big thing in there and expect it to not get gummed up and go crazy on you and get all stuck in there. So you have to take your time, and you have to realize that you're going to need a lot of flour. And when I was making it, I said, oh, I use the all-purpose flour to kind of put it on the table to keep it from sticking. Now I'm going to switch to the semolina. This semolina is not as coarse as I usually see it. It's pretty fine, but it still has a coarser texture, and it won't absorb, because at this point I don't really want it to absorb into the pasta anymore. This has enough moisture, that's fine. I don't want to dry it out in the process, because you do use a lot of this just so it doesn't stick. So let's switch to the semolina flour. So all the attachments to these mixers usually get attached up here. There's a little screw there, and I'm going to put mine on there. So turn it tight onto there, and we're going to move it like that. I like that. Maybe you can see that better. So I'm just going to take a piece. I like to cut it better than rip it. The sides tend to stay nicer looking. It just is easier for me. And I'm going to flatten this out a bit. I always try to keep it square and all nice, but it never takes the hint. It just comes out any which way at once. So I'm going to use a low setting. And the settings on here, I have it on the highest, the most open, which is 1. And then we'll take it maybe to 3, then to 5. I don't know, I don't typically go to, like, for like the thinnest one. I tend to like 5, 7, or 5 or 6 is usually where I stop. So I make sure that this is open, and then I just feed the pasta through there, and it's so far so good. And I want it on a slow setting. So we're getting it, it's ripping up a little bit. So I'm actually going to cut that part off because I don't want it in with my other one. So you do use a good bit of this. And now I'm going to just take it down to 2. Feed that in there. Looking good so far. Put a little more on each side. And we set it to 3. And to tell you the truth, I think we might leave it on 3. It's pretty thin. And you want to support it as it's coming out of the machine, and as the longer end is in on this side of the machine. So you know what? I like that. I think that that is a good thickness. You can see that it's a little bit on the end is a little bit narrower, but I'm going to keep it just like that. Right, so let's do one more piece, and then I'm going to show you how to roll it out by hand. I have these nice long sheets of pasta, and I'm going to show you how to cut them. So this is where this is where it can stick and get pretty ugly if you're not careful. So I'm going to I put my linguine cutter in just like I did the rollers, just put it into here, screw it tight so it doesn't move, and put it on a low setting. Okay, so I'm going to again support this side of the pasta as it goes through, and then switch to this side. And at this point, I can do a couple things. I can lay this out on like a drying rack. I could put it on a coat hanger and hang it somewhere so that they dry out. And what I normally do is, because usually I make it and then we eat it right away. I don't really dry it out. So I make sure that it is well coated with semolina, and put it into, this is about 1 portion, and then set it on a tray until I'm ready for it. Now there's another thing you can do with it. You can take this, this tray, freeze it, and then put them together in like a bag once they're already frozen, and then just bring each portion out as you need it. That's, if I'm gonna preserve it, that's usually the way I would do it. So I'm gonna clear this out a little bit. I told you I was going to show you how to make it if you didn't have a pasta machine. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take a break here, clean this all up, and then I'm going to show you how to do it by hand. All right, so I want to show you how to make, roll the pasta out and cut it by hand in case you don't have a pasta machine. But remember, cruise a couple garage sales and or Goodwill or thrift stores, chances are there's one there. So I'm going to flatten this out a little bit, and I'm going to use the semolina as I roll it out. And when you roll anything like pasta, pie dough, you want to make sure you're not going all the way over the edge and rolling it into the table. That's when it sticks. You also want to make sure that you're moving the pasta or dough or whatever around. You know, pick it up, put some more flour down, put some on the top side. And I'm kind of a weakling. I don't really have a lot of upper body strength going on here. So my pasta doesn't really turn out really thin. It's kind of looks, when I make it like this, it's kind of chunky. But I'm going to continue to roll this out. I'll probably put it on fast forward so you don't have to sit through it. Oh, there's an eggshell. Okay. It's actually pretty thin and pretty even the way I rolled it out. I'm really surprised. So not only when you roll it out like into sheets like this, whether it's with the machine or by hand, this is where, like, if I wanted to make tortellinis, I could do it then. Or raviolis, you can use a big sheet like this and you put the filling down, put another one over it, and then cut around them. Or I could use a round cutter and put a little filling inside, fold it over to make a half moon, and then bring the ends together to make a tortellini. So this is, you know, the stage that you could do that. But we're gonna make some pasta. So again, I'm gonna use my semolina flour, put some on there so it doesn't stick to itself. Roll it up lightly, and then I'm gonna cut it. Try to stay in the same width, and I also, oh, that doesn't look too bad. It's actually pretty thin. And I also want to have some semolina flour ready to put on this also. So I'm going to keep on going and cut that up. Make sure you're cutting all the way through too, so you don't have just like one big pasta noodle with just fringes on it. So you make sure you go all the way through to the cutting board. And there we have pasta. This is probably about two portions right there. So actually, I think this is thinner than the other stuff. Now it's about the same. But you want to unroll all those little pieces, just kind of flip it around a little bit, get some semolina on there, and then put it on your tray. And like I said, you could either make it right away, you could dry it, or you could freeze it. So that's it for making pasta. But there's a couple things I want to remind you of before. When you're finished with your cutters and your rollers, make sure you clean them. The worst thing that can happen is you get them and they're all gummed up and they don't work properly. So you want to remember to keep everything dry. Don't run these through the dishwasher, don't do anything like that, no water. You just want to, this brush came with my set, or you could take another little brush and kind of brush out the flowers, and if you have anything that is gummed up on there, let it dry and then poke it out immediately. Don't let it sit in there for a long time. Okay, so these things aren't cheap. So you want to keep them as nice as possible, like brand new. So remember, you have 2 cups of flour, you have 1 semolina, you have 1 all-purpose, you have a little bit of salt in there, and 4 eggs. Mix it around, develop a little gluten so that it is able to stretch and it doesn't break. Let it in the refrigerator for an hour, bring it back out, roll it out, and then I'm going to do the next video. I'm going to show you how to cook it in a couple different ways.